Hello everyone, my name is Sreeparna Chattopadhyay and Padme has asked me to answer a few questions around adoption for prospective adoptive parents. So here I am trying to answer some of those questions. So the first question that I have is, can you share with your audience a background of you and your family? So I am an anthropologist by occupation. I am married to a scientist, and we are both from culturally from very different backgrounds. And we live in Bangalore right now. That's where we adopted our little daughter, and we have very similar value systems, and that was, I think, one of the reasons why we agreed on the issue of adoption. And I think that's about it in terms of background. The second question I have is, what encouraged you to consider adoption? So I wanted to adopt since I was 14 years old. I can't really explain why that was the case. And of course, as a 14-year-old, you are not mentally or physically ready to take on the responsibility of a child. But when I had the chance, we thought about it a lot, and it wasn't very straightforward or very easy, because while I was very much in favor of adoption and being a parent, my partner wasn't that comfortable with the idea of being a parent at first. So it took some amount of convincing and kind of for him to get around, and finally he did. And it wasn't a problem with adoption per se, but it was just with the idea of being a parent. So it's been about more than a year and, well, close to 2 years since we adopted our little girl, and it's been full of ups and downs, but lots of joys. Okay, the third question is, how did you broach the topic of adoption with your family? So with both my parents and his mom, who is the only surviving relative actually, it was really easy. I think they were very much in favor and in support of adoption as a way of becoming parents. So it wasn't hard at all to get them on board, and they were super supportive. And in fact, because we found our daughter through immediate placement, there was nobody really there with us. They couldn't come because it happened so fast. And for the first, I think, almost a week, we were on our own. And as first-time parents, with a young, she was nearly 9 months old when we adopted her, and she was quite frail and quite ill actually. In the initial few months, so it was a little hard, but as soon as they were able to come, they came, and it was really great to have that support in those early months. The fourth question is, how did your family and friends respond to this decision? So we had been talking proactively to a lot of friends who had adopted, who had gone through this journey. And I have several friends who have adopted, and so it wasn't so much as a response, but it was more a question of support. So in terms of, what are the procedures, how do you go ahead, how do you follow up, what do you write in your home study report, and things like that. So it wasn't, so they all responded really positively, so there was no surprise, because we were surrounded by people who had also gone through this same experience. The next question I have is, do you think it is important for parents to talk to their children about their adoption status? Yes, I think it's absolutely important, and I think that the child has a right to know. And we were also counseled when we were going through adoption, and that we should let our daughter know that she was adopted. So I think that's absolutely necessary, and that should happen as early as possible. What conversations do you think are important for a parent to have with their child? So our daughter is about a little under 2.5 right now. So we have actually already started the conversations through books. And I have told her a story, which is the story of how she came to be with us. I'm not 100% sure how much of it really she can grasp or understand, but I'm sure that if we continue telling her the stories, and this is what we've been advised, it will become such a natural part of who she is that adoption won't seem like some kind of an aberration. And I think that is really important with children who are adopted, that they not feel that they are different somehow, because they are not. They are just like any other child, except that they have a different route, which they came, which because of which they entered the family. So that's only the difference. So the next question is, can you kindly elaborate more on the support systems that you consider necessary for parents to have during the adoption process? I think this is really critical, and as I mentioned before, it's very important to have both family and friends on board during the process of both applying for it, and because there's always a long wait, you've got to have the support system. And I think that one of the things that I'm really grateful to for Padme is the support that I had from the founder, Gayatri, in the very early days after we got our daughter home, because of just the kind of health issues she had, and it was really nice to have the view of a parent who had gone through similar kinds of issues with her children and had come out really resilient and safe and healthy on the other side. So I would say that for anyone who is considering adoption, to have as much of a support system as they can build of supportive people, really people who support your decision and stand with you through all the way, because it's a pretty delicate period for parents. The process is long, so you don't really want people around you to second guess your decision and to give you any kind of negative feedback. So I would say that, yeah, definitely to make sure that you have supportive people around you to help you through this process. Okay, the next question I have is, what are your views on fostering resilience towards the societal judgments around the adoption system in your child? So I am still a very young adoptive parent, and we have, and despite the fact that it's been a relatively short time that Rumi has been with us, we have already been exposed to a lot of really negative and obnoxious comments. And initially I used to be shocked and surprised and find them quite hurtful. But now I've got to the stage where I just feel, I've learned to ignore it, or I've learned to just talk back in such a way that the other person just doesn't have a follow up after that. In terms of building resilience in children, I think we'll see how it goes, but my hope is that if you make adoption a very normal thing for them, and you also give them the chance to interact with children who have come through adoption into their families, or children who are different in whatever ways, then you normalize this difference or other kinds of differences. And this process of normalization, I think, is what builds resilience in children. And if you tell them early enough, from what I have heard from the experiences of other adoptive parents, is that then there is much less of a shock or a trauma. And also, I think that, if they have questions around where they came from, who their biological parents are, to not, end up just saying, I don't know, or, finding ways to push those questions under the carpet, but rather engaging with them in ways that are constructive. I don't have any examples right now because my child is still really young and hasn't really asked those questions. But I hope that when the time comes, I will be able to engage with those questions quite constructively. The next question is, parenting has its challenges, and family formation through adoption may have more challenges. What are your thoughts around it? Okay, so yes, parenting is full of challenges. I don't think either of us, me or my husband, have slept through the night since we've got Rumi home. And she is a particularly bad sleeper on most nights, so I think that's been difficult. Um, I think the challenges related to parenting through adoption, some of them are just the same as it would be with having your own child. But some of them can be a little bit more sort of amplified, and depending on the kind of institution that your child was in before you adopted her, and the health condition that she was in, um, that can be a bit of a challenge in the beginning. And I certainly felt that not knowing enough about what the health history was, and therefore what medical options we had and how should we proceed with the treatment. So a lot of it was playing by the ear. So that, I would say, is a particular challenge of adoptive children. But having said that, I don't think that adoptive children are special in having health issues. I think even biological children, can have some health problems, and those are things that you have to deal with as a parent. It's just that there is a difference in the amount of knowledge you have, medical knowledge you have about the child's pre-existing conditions or other things which can sort of make it easier as a biological parent to find the correct treatment for a child, while for an adoptive parent it might take a little bit longer to get on the right track. So that, I would say, is one. The second thing is what we have already discussed before, which is the harsh comments or the really stupid and obnoxious remarks that come from not necessarily your circle of friends or family, but really people who you don't know. I mean, there are perfect strangers who have walked up to me and asked me whether the child was mine, or even worse stuff. So I think that developing parental resilience is also important as much as developing the resilience of the child, because regardless of how one came to this journey of being a parent through adoption, whether it was by choice, as in my case, or whether it was through not being able to have children and therefore choosing adoption, which is in a lot of people's cases. In either of the case, I think one has to be prepared for the fact that there will be some, obstacles and barriers along the way in the ways in which I have described, and therefore being able to overcome those, or having the patience so that you wait for those barriers to just kind of go away on their own, even if you can't overcome them completely. So I think that's about it I have to say. I wish every adoptive parent all the best in their journey, and I hope that you find this process, the parenting part of it, as rewarding as I did, and and I think it's just wonderful to be a parent in any kind of way, whether it's biological or adoptive. But especially in case of adoption, I think it's just such a wonderful experience when the child comes home, and you've waited so long, to bring the child home. That is the best part about it. So good luck to all the parents out there who are waiting to bring their children home. Thank you.